have a look at our top story. The RAF employees, who are members of the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, Numsa for short, have been on strike since Friday. Numsa is saying a bridge of salary gap and better working conditions. The union's members are unhappy over what they say is widespread mismanagement at the RAF, which has saddled the company with debt of more than 8 million rand. RAF says Numsa's reasons for going on strike are unreasonable and without merit.
Debt burden of the road accident fund sparked a protest in the RAF headquarters in Centurion. The members of the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, Numsa, employed by the RAF, took to the streets. Workers say the state of the fund has reached a crisis point and there is no other platform to engage management except protesting. The fund has suspended the Central Bargaining Council. It is understood that workers are unhappy with pay and claims a disparity with the executives allegedly earning up to 5 million rands a year.
Protesting against unfair labor practices at the Road Accident Fund. One of the things that we took to the CMA was the unfair implementation of the salary scales by the employer. They have not updated our salaries for the past 3 years.
We're of the view that there's a lot of allegations, which we will reflect some of those when we meet with the minister, which we have no proof of. But also we think that the public protector has got a role to play, because this is an institution that is supposed to be basically taking care of the people who are victims of accidents. They must be able to claim. And workers have got some information which we will pass on when we finally meet with the minister.
Meanwhile, activists have lashed out at the RAF, saying thousands of accident victims are suffering because RAF is not paying them.
I think the Road Accident Fund is facing major difficulties, not now, but over the past few years. We know the funds are depleted and more accident victims are feeling the brunt of this hardship. We know there are thousands of cases where the Road Accident Fund is not executing and ordering and getting the court orders paid. And I think the real hardship here is the poor accident victims, people who are in pain, people who are distraught, and people who need the funding.
However, in a statement, the fund conceded that it was in a financial trouble, but claimed that it was making remarkable strides to turn the ship around. RAF says Numsa's reason for going on strike is unreasonable and without merit. They are rooted in their insistence that the RAF adopted unverified, nebulous proposed salary scales, which the fund cannot accede to. RAF also says that salary scales were upgraded in 2013, 2014 and 2016, and the employees whose remuneration was below the minimum were brought up to the entry level. Employees further say the conditions at the RAF have worsened significantly since Project Sienza came to an end. The project, which started in 2013, was meant to help the RAF administer claims and clear the existing backlog, but the workers say Project Sienza did not manage to achieve its goal and they are now paying the price. The RAF was declared bankrupt earlier this year and has found itself with the 8 billion rands debt. While the Road Accident Fund says in a statement it will continue engaging Numsa through various mediation processes, there will be no public engagements on the matter until an agreement has been reached. However, the big question remains, where does this leave the Road Accident Fund claimants? Numsa Pungula for ANN 7, Centurion.
More and more issues of critical imbalances that are taking place within our state-owned enterprises, more concern about how people should be paid and wages coming up as well, really creating a little bit of a serious concern, particularly this time of the year where we've had really little strikes in terms of our economy. So we are joined, therefore, by Tsepo Khadima, who's our political analyst. He's going to be talking to us about this particular issue and tell us where the problems are and what Numsa has identified. Tsepo, thank you very much and welcome.
Yeah, good. It's good to be here. Listen, I think the issues that Numsa are raising are actually very fundamental. One of the chief grievances that they have is that Very recently, the sheriff of the court arrived at RAF's offices and effectively took all the computers, or a writ of execution was being exercised. And they are complaining that those computers are sitting with vital information or personal information of various RAF claimants, and well, whose hands is that going to be? But I don't think that's, that is the main issue, yes. But in the first place, why would you have RAF collecting all the money that it does? South Africans of every kind, they are paying through a fuel levy, contributing towards the RAF, but it appears that it can't meet its debts and obligations. So that should be a worry. It points out to perhaps maybe an organization that itself is not functioning properly, and it would stand to reason that what Numsa is requesting or demanding, that the public protector make some investigation, might not necessarily be misplaced, taking into account that even their bank account, I think in February, was frozen, again because of unpaid debts. So that really is pointing out to a very bleak situation at RAF. And lastly, I think, Clive, what has always sort of perturbed me is that in South Africa, we have now earned the coveted title of having the highest per capita consumption of alcohol. And we also know, if you ask the Minister of Health, will tell you that most of the accidents that we have, that either in fatalities or injuries, but the hospitals have to deal with that, as a direct result of alcohol consumption. I've always wondered, RAF is right now short of funds to be able to pay the claimants, but yet we're not collecting additional revenue from alcohol consumption to go in towards a road accident fund, and they don't seem to be having any other strategy of increasing the funding into road accident funds. We've got many people who are not able to claim. And lastly, I couldn't help but wonder, what does RAF have to do having a chief marketing officer?
I won't be able to respond to that, because we did try to get a hold of the IRF, and they did say that they will not be able to make themselves available because they're not commenting at the present moment. But here's a question to you. We have 2,600 employees of the IRAF. Numsa represents 800. Do you think it's unfair to the rest of the employees that they come across and they disturb things for other workers who perhaps maybe want to continue with work despite the grievances that have been taken up by Numsa?
Well, I mean, in industrial activity, or in terms of labor relations, it's something that is in our constitution. Workers have got a right to belong to a trade union, and they've got a right to organize and mobilize within various places of employment. And it would appear that in terms of percentages, Numsa does sincerely have the numbers in terms of representation within RAF, so that you can't deny them. But I've always thought that management of any enterprise or any state organ, state entity for that matter, they have to, actually the senior management have to be leading in terms of employee relations. Because if they can be the ones that are taking the lead, if they can be the ones that are setting by example and being closer to the workers, there will be less industrial action as we are currently seeing, which is not necessary. But I think by and large, apart from the grievance of salaries or parity in pay that Numsa seems to be complaining about, the other issue is that there are these bigger problems that RAF seems to be in. And I'm just thinking that, are we perhaps maybe not paying particular attention? We'll end up with a situation as we saw with SASA, where towards the 11th hour, then there was a crisis. Are we going to sit with a situation whereby now RAF, despite the collections, it's got so much unclaimed because the backlog, they're speaking about the backlog. So how do they pay that? And
I mean, you've got
going
the backlog.
Forward,
We know that attorneys and legal firms have been claiming exuberant amounts of monies on behalf of the claimants or the beneficiaries. And obviously that was not sustainable. There was claims of corruption that, that some other law firms who are actually involved in scheming the RAF. So where do we go? Where does it all start? And how do we make sure, therefore, then, that we don't end up with a situation like we had with SASA?
Minister Dibuo Peters needs to take the lead. I don't think to wait for the public protector to make some sort of an investigation and come up to a finding.
Is it going to be a dissolving of the board?
Well, what I'm saying is that she has to be the one who's taking the lead.
Yeah,
She needs to demonstrate to the nation that she's seized with the real situation and the facts at RAF, and also explain what she's going to do to ensure that we've got a stable RAF that can be able to pay the claims as they become due or as they become so confirmed by the court. And the issue of the backlog, I think, should be worrying, because there are many people who you find that they have got no other means following an accident of earning an income. They didn't have insurance, and RAF was meant to be able to come in and need. Now, if you have a backlog, well, what do those people do? I think the situation is a lot more serious. Yeah. The situation of RAF, you really have to pay particular attention to it. We cannot just be leaving it as though another dysfunctional state-owned entity, but it's a very important state-owned entity in terms of the role that it plays within our nation. And I think additional funding needs to be sorted out, but it's really ensuring that it functions in a manner and that the lawyers, the army of lawyers who make their sole income from processing RAF claims, that itself, I think, is a bone of contention for many years. What are they going to do? They can't just keep talking about it. They need to resolve it, because the funds or the claims, they need to go to the people who have been injured in an accident, and not to the army of lawyers who have made a career out of this. So the situation has become very complex. I cannot see for the life of me why if you had an accident and there's an accident report, there is a hospitalization as a direct result of that, you still need a lawyer who's an intermediary who takes such a big cut. It's certainly that that is an unacceptable situation, which is created, is the chief source of the financial problems or hardship that we are seeing RAF facing.
Tabo, it hurts me as well, but you have another state-owned enterprise being put in a situation like this. You've got the RAF that looks after people who've been hurt and injured through motor vehicles. You have SASA, who looks after people who depend solely on those grants so that they can live on. Are we becoming a little bit arrogant with regards to how we administer our state-owned enterprises and the job that they're supposed to do, which is to look after the very people that tomorrow will be standing in long queues to make a vote for whatever political party they want to? Are we taking these people for granted by not looking after these state-owned enterprises that play a critical role, particularly to the poor and disadvantaged of this country?
The problem that we have in this country is that we are very tolerant of mediocrity, incompetence, and just sheer, how can I say, lack of really, applying oneself. When people like to have the glory that goes with the position of that they are a director on the board of such and such, but they don't want to take the responsibility that goes with that. And until such time that we can see that those that occupy board positions, in the event that there's dereliction of duty, they are punished as so stipulated in the law, that there is enforcement thereof, we are going to continue to see this. We are very tolerant, and I think that is a huge problem that we have. And the state itself, in many times trying to afford people due process rights, it becomes justice that is delayed, and that's justice that is denied. We have to really expeditiously deal with issues. You can't have a situation where people are suspended for lengthy periods of time, but also nobody ever gets punished. It's a question of that we can apologize and nobody take consequences for their lack or for having dereliction of duty. So that is something that we need to deal with. But with our state-owned enterprises, for as long as we have the governance regime in the manner that it is, I'm very worried. I think there's something that, again, the presidency, 4 years ago, they embarked on a process. They established a commission to review on the governance of state-owned enterprises, and nothing has really come out of that. And that is just not an acceptable situation. They should have at least established from the findings of that commission to ensure that there's proper governance, there is proper accountability on those that are sit on these various boards, and that they can be agile in delivering to the people. To have a situation where somebody waits for 2 years before they can receive their RAF claim, when they might be needing medical bills that don't wait for 2 years, is certainly unacceptable. And I can't see how we can continue with it as business as usual.
Thank you so much, Tsepo Khadima, political analyst, talking to us there, telling us like it is and the way we want to hear it. And but it is really a really worrying situation that is panning out, and I'm hoping that obviously these things will be handled with care, and there will be constructive discussions that make sure that we don't see such situation pan out, because obviously the people that get hurt the most are the poor of the poorest, and we don't want to see that taking place at all, indeed. Moving on with more of your stories, Eskom says that the construction of permanent coal handling solution for the Majuba power station in Mpumalanga is complete. This follows the collapse of a coal silo 2 years ago at the station. The competition follows the rebuilding of Silo 20, the reinforcement of Silo 10 and 30, a lift shaft, 2 pairs and the coal conveyor system. In November 2014, a wall of coal Silo 20 collapsed at Majuba station. Rural Development and Land Reform Minister Kukile Nkwinti has a bill that seeks to ban foreigners from buying agricultural land. It promulgated as an act, foreigners would only be allowed to enter into long-term leases. Foreigners selling land would also have to offer the minister the right of the first refusal to acquire ownership of such agricultural land holdings. The bill will be seeing the creation of a land commission which will oversee the collection and dissemination of all information regarding public agricultural land in South Africa. Nkwinti has given stakeholders until April 16 this year to submit comments on the regulatory of agricultural land holdings bill. As it is a norm here on BizPulse, let's have a look at your learning word with Learning Pulse. This evening's Learning Pulse has the word hyperinflation. Hyperinflation, a situation where the price increases are so out of control that the concept of inflation is meaningless. The executive mayor of the governing Mbeki municipality, Flora Maboa Boltman, launched a golf day of the Graceland Hotel in Mpumalanga to open the Flora Maboa Boltman Developmental Foundation. The objectives of the foundation is to create a trust that will be utilized to facilitate economic empowerment for the underprivileged. It will particularly focus on the elderly and infirm, orphanages, housing for the poor and families, and also assist students with bursaries. It will also have a feeding scheme for school children.
The foundation is about assisting the poor people, but most of all will be focusing on students who doesn't have money to register for university or whatever. We are looking at students who are committed, students that we know if we have assisted them, we are not going to waste. It's also on those people who do sleep in hungry stomach, those people who doesn't have a roof over their heads. We will be looking in terms of those. So we are sure that people will donate and we will be able to assist those. We hold meetings, we know business people, we know a number of people who can help. Now it is up to us to commit and make sure that we adhere to the principles of the NDP and assist people.
That's all the time we have for you for BizPulse this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. And as it is always, we are looking forward to hearing from you. We hope that we'll catch up again tomorrow at the same time at 8 p.m. It's time for the beautiful game. And if you're still an Arsenal fan after what happened this weekend, I love you.